Hi there, I'm Joni Deutsch. I'm a podcast producer here at WFAE, Charlotte's NPR news source. And if you've been listening to us on radio or following us on social media, you've likely heard about our new investigative podcast. It's called She Says, and it follows one woman's 3-year journey for finding resolution and justice in her case. Each week we get on the air or on Facebook to talk to you about the episode. 2 weeks ago, we released our first episode. This past week, we released our third episode. So if you have not listened to any of the episodes yet, pause this video, go listen to the first and second episodes and third, and come back to us with your questions. And today, I am joined by the news director of WFAE. He's also the editor of the She Says podcast, Greg Collard.
And it's just been an absolute nightmare. An absolute nightmare. So I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't at this point.
For those that maybe missed out on the first and second episodes, Greg, where were we when we last left Linda in the second episode?
I really was very disappointed in how that was handled. I was livid.
Well, the second episode goes through a lot of the evidence collection, the painstaking process of evidence collection from the SANE sexual assault nurse examiners. And we also examine the policing philosophy of CMPD and whether it is victim-centric. And
that's the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department.
Yes, absolutely. And we leave the end of the episode with Linda getting a call from police saying they want her to come down and talk about the case.
So, third episode, again released last week. What happens in this episode without giving too many details away?
We can't afford to be emotional. We have to make a decision based on probable cause. It doesn't matter whether we believe or don't believe, and frankly, we don't even enter that into the equation. We work the case based on the facts.
Well, there is a conversation with police that Linda recorded that is very intense, very emotional. She leaves feeling that police. She asked them, in fact, that if they believe her, and the answer they give her doesn't give her much comfort.
Now, this episode is interesting because this is involving a long bit of tape that Linda records of this conversation with CMPD. But listeners aren't able to hear the entire tape. There's not like unedited portions of it out there. So can you tell us a little bit about how long that tape is and what was involved in picking out which ones to put in that episode?
Yes, this piece of tape is over an hour long, and with a lot of listening, reading transcriptions of it. And ultimately we focused on this, we focused on a few things, but one of them being this intense conversation with police. And there are also other parts of it where there's a follow-up conversation that she has with her husband. But it was just reviewing, listening, deciding what to, just what fits best with the story. But one of the interesting things about this is we played this for police and got a response from them. But before we did that, we actually went down to CMP headquarters, played it for them, left tape with them for 2 weeks later is when we interviewed the head of the sexual assault unit about what's in that tape.
So some listeners might be wondering, is this tape even legally permissible to use in a podcast? Like, how can we use this investigation?
Yeah, absolutely. North Carolina has a one-party consent law, which means that only basically one person in a recording needs to be aware of that the recording is taking place. We did not record any of this, and she never recorded anything under our direction or instruction. This was between her and the police, and she shared that with us.
Now, another another individual brought into the podcast is Captain Melanie Peacock, and she is with CMPD in Charlotte. I know that WFAE has interviewed and spoke with CMPD for a number of reasons over the years, not including She Says, but this interview seems like it is different in a way from others. Would you say that's true? Oh,
absolutely. I don't think we've ever interviewed police officials about their methods in dealing with victims and how they question victims, and that's an intense conversation.
Yeah. Did you hear anything from CMPD, or is there a difference in how they responded to WFAE for this kind of interview?
Once we played, when we played the tape for them, we have not had any response since this has aired from CMPD about this. But when we played, as far as the process, when we played the tape for them, they were they were cooperative. They appreciated us give them a chance to respond, and they were pretty good about setting up an interview for us to ask our questions.
It sounds like we will be hearing more from CMPD in a couple ways as the podcast continues. But moving on to the fourth episode, again, third episode just dropped, but the fourth episode is coming up very soon. What can listeners expect in this fourth episode of She?
Yeah, well, we go through Linda's internet search and how she came to identify the person that she believes is Mr. X, and we also learn a lot about DNA evidence and the relationship with labs and police departments. And we end with, and we also go through the process that CMPD is doing to try to get possibly try to get a DNA swab from the person that Linda believes is Mr. X, and that process is very interesting and another aspect of the winding road we've been on throughout this story.
And thank you for listening, for watching. Again, the third episode of She Says is just out now. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you find your podcast, as well as on the podcast website, which is WFAE.org/She Says. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to rate and review, because that helps us get the word out about the podcast so others can hear Linda's story. And it's such a great story, a wonderful story to hear. We hope you join us next week for another interview on this Facebook page. And in the meantime, we hope you support your favorite public radio station, which we hope is WFAE, by hitting the donate button at WFAE.org. So until next time, from WFAE in Charlotte, I'm Joni Deutsch. Thanks for watching.